Is your cup already full? This is a guide to the Cancer new moon. The astrologer Coppock calls this Decan that the new moon falls in, the overflowing cup. And that single image is inspiring what I'm writing about for this video, because it changes everything about how we approach this new moon, and it redefines what abundance means to us. Mercury is currently retrograde in Cancer, so this isn't a moment for making new plans, but for looking back and seeing what's already there for us. This isn't where we're chasing abundance, but it's about noticing what we've already got, those things that we take for granted or are underappreciated. I'm going to walk you through the Decan symbolism, and we'll also look at the moon family timeline. If you've got placements here, this is going to be really important for you, especially with your storyline with abundance. And we'll look at a simple ritual that you can try this week. And by the end, you'll understand why the most powerful thing that you can do this new moon is simply to notice what's already full for you. So welcome to Celestia Astrology. I'm Sonia, and I'm so glad you're here for this look at the Cancer new moon, because so often we might do our rituals and maybe try and manifest something and start something new, especially with Cancer being a cardinal sign. You might be being advised to manifest, but really this lunation is inviting us to slow down and look back with nostalgia and memories and our old stories before we think about what's coming next. This new moon will be forming on the 14th of July, and I'm in the UK, so this is at 10:43 a.m. British summer time, and it will be at 21 degrees and 58 minutes of Cancer. It's also the first new moon of the summers. We've just had the summer solstice here in the northern hemisphere, and then in the southern hemisphere it'll be the peak of winter, and it's landing in this third and final decan of the sign. Cancer is the water sign and also the second cardinal sign of the zodiac. And cardinal signs are known to begin new seasons, so that's why Cancer arrives at the beginning of the summer. And water responds through feelings and our intuition when we just know something, and the memories that we hold on to that inform how we move forward. And together they create that emotional movement where we respond instinctively. And water needs to flow. It needs that constant movement, just like the moon is ebbing and flowing. It's always moving. So this pausing and looking back is kind of counterintuitive. Water doesn't flow uphill, water doesn't flow backwards. So it's quite difficult to do that in this Cancerian place. Cancer will act because of how it feels, and it will protect what matters to it by creating places of belonging, by nurturing the relationships that it already has, and preserving the people that matter, the traditions, the stories, and the memories, the myths that are handed down and that give life continuity. So when we get a new moon here, it's not necessarily asking us to start something new, but to notice, value, and treasure what's already holding you, and to notice how you hold others, how you pass that along, how you're creating your place in this thread. I talk a lot about threads, but how are you holding your place in that thread that's continuing before you and along after you as well? So the sun and moon are meeting together in this sign of Cancer that this moon rules and is also its home. It's its domicile. It's a place where the moon has dignity. And that brings these themes of nurturing, emotional security. It often signifies the home, family, places where we belong. And also the cycles of our inner lives are amplified here. This is a moment where our deepest emotional needs are asking to be seen and honoured. And that matters to us. We can be quite hurt when we're not seen, or when our needs are not recognised or heard. And with Mercury retrograde here, and it's so close to the moon and sun, but it's moving away from it, that's telling us that the moon is speaking to our feelings, but Mercury is speaking to our thoughts, our ideas, and our words. So this is about those old stories that we pass down or that we tell ourselves. It's giving us this moment for reflection, for revisiting those old conversations, maybe within the home or within our families, and for listening carefully to what's resurfacing now, what's important to you, and maybe finding what old stories don't fit anymore for who you are now. Sometimes we can release what no longer fits or what's no longer true for us. And that's important to do that refresh, to revisit that. And that's how that change can occur, how that cardinal nature of change. Before we move forward, we've got to check those foundations and are they true? So you might find those conversations that you're having are turning towards those themes of family, belonging, home, memories, old photos, old stories. And this may all feel like quite a lot, but remember, this is all pointing back to just one simple thing, and that's your emotional world that's being asked to slow down and to take a look back. Jupiter is the exalted ruler of Cancer and is just crossed into Leo now after spending the last 12 months in Cancer. So Jupiter spent that time encouraging us to strengthen our roots, our emotional security, and our sense of belonging. And now he's shifting his attention towards expressing those gifts that we've been working on for the last 12 months with more confidence and courage. So we're just having this last review before we're ready to go out into the world with them. We're just doing that last final check, like before somebody goes out on stage, like makeup does a final dust over and their lights are checked, and then you get your curtain call. And also Chiron has recently entered Taurus, and that shifts the collective focus towards healing the body. Chiron is the wounded healer. So it's very old wounds that we've lived with for a long time, and we've had difficulty healing. And sometimes we can see them in others and seek to help them with that wound. And that in turn reflects back to us and informs us about how we're handling our wounds. And it can be about the senses. We can take information while Chiron's in Taurus through our senses about our self-worth maybe, or the material foundations on which we're building our lives. Together, maybe these changes are suggesting that this lasting growth that we're seeking begins not by, again, forcing something new to happen, by speeding ahead right now, but again, by this stepping back, taking time, Taurus's slow-moving sign, and recognizing what's already supporting us. And that's the invitation that we're looking at right now. The decans are the storytellers of the zodiac. Each decan is a 10-degree slice of the zodiac, and they each have their own distinct stories and their own distinct voice. And this third decan of Cancer is one of my favorites because of the image that it brings to mind. In the Chaldean order, to go into some technicalities, this decan is ruled by the moon herself, and in the triplicity method, it's ruled by Jupiter, who is also the exaltation ruler of Cancer. So we have both the domicile lord of Cancer and the exaltation lord present in this decan, and that deepens this sense of fullness of our bodies, and also that generosity and expansion that Jupiter brings, the faith as well, the wisdom that Jupiter offers us. Astrologer Austin Coppock names this decan the overflowing cup. Brings to mind this image of a vessel, a chalice that's been filled so patiently and steadily, but now it's reached that point of abundance. We can't carry the cup when it's totally full without it spilling. And that's this Cancer 3. It speaks of this fullness, nourishment and generosity, but also this quieter culmination of all of life's riches. And that can be not only material, but also emotional, spiritual, physical, all the other ways that life can show you abundance that isn't just about the money in your bank account. It's way beyond that. And we're being asked to notice all those different ways and not just think about the material. But there's also tension here. Austin Coppock writes in his book, The 36 Decans, about a world of limited material resources. So when one person attains luxury, that can mean deprivation for others. And we know that between the disparagement, the 1% that people talk about, and how that means that there's so many on the lower rungs of society that are deprived of a basic living standard, and how equality would mean that the money that they spend on these luxuries, they could raise everybody up to a living standard where there was fresh water or food to eat and shelter. That would be so easy. And wouldn't it be nice if we see something like that with this Cancer moon, if some of them actually reflect on how they're using the resources that they have access to protect the world, to protect the climate. I hope that they're going to be reflecting on that. So their dilemma is that this overflowing cup asks us not just to appreciate with gratitude our own abundance, but also to become a conduit for it in the same way that water has to flow. We also have to be mindful that sharing that abundance, investing the excess, not just allowing it to spill over and go to waste, but allow that generosity to flow through us rather than stopping with us. And that can apply to anybody, whatever their abundance is. Just allow it to flow out from you and see what good it can do in the world. And chances are it will flow back to you in other ways. And Austin Coppock notes that with this abundance comes the risk also of emotional overwhelm, where the waves of that feeling can threaten to drown us if we don't practice the discernment. So discernment is an important word to use with this abundance, because many of us may think we've just got to call in abundance and it's as simple as that and then we'll be happy. But no, this abundance can be overwhelming. So we do have to look deeper at the levels and the layers that can come. And be careful what we wish for. Kira Ryberg, in her ebook on the Decan, describes Cancer III as holding a tension between comfort and stagnation, because we can bask in security, but it also asks us to look at whether what we're clinging to feels safe, if it's coming at the expense of our soul's deeper purpose. That's the shadow of this Decan. It can be that comfort can keep us small, and abundance can become a cage if we're hoarding it and not sharing it. And Kira Ryberg emphasizes that there's an ability to experience some of life's grandest luxuries, but there's also the potential to tangle with the underworld and all that exists in that world of the night. Power, greed, and privilege can often be exposed here. And as a result, one must choose whether we're going to join those forces or are we going to fight against them and let others know about that excess and expose it. I love this imagery from the Wild Way Oracle deck for this Decan. It shows a beaver diligently building its home under the full moon that's reflected by these lush, abundant waters. And the key word for this Decan are more than enough, desire for luxury, and generosity. And we're reminded that this creature doesn't only build for itself, its work transforms the ecosystem, it transforms nature. It's creating conditions where other forms of life can also flourish. The Oracle card says if you provide the opportunity for others to enjoy the same comforts that you benefit from, it can be just as satisfying as basking in them yourself. And I was discussing this in Celestia Circle with another lady, and she was saying that she lived near beavers, but also it can become problematic as well. If there's too many of them, that they can be hoarding resources and they can be damaging the local environment. So again, there's the shadow as well of the risk of hoarding resources, and also the damage it can make if one species has too much power or too much abundance in the local area. And then the tarot card associated with this Decan is the Four of Cups. Here we see a figure sitting under a tree. It looks to be on the top of a hill, so there's some sort of feeling of accomplishment or gain here. And it has 3 cups in front of them, which it appears to be contemplating. And a fourth is offered by an unseen hand, like a gift being offered from maybe the divine or a spiritual kind of gift. At its best, this card is inviting us to reflect on the blessings that are already present, but also in its shadow, it's warning of taking abundance for granted, of emotional stagnation, and of missing the gift that's already being offered. And again, that word discernment comes to mind as well. Is there a stubbornness or a refusal to see the whole picture, the 4 cups and everything that offers, and choosing to allow that flow as well? And then we have the beautiful verse from T. Susan Chang. The jewel in the deep blue sea, meaning reeled in from memory, lunar shadow, liquid mind. What you most need you shall find. In a journey, take the ride. Priceless pearls found deep inside. It does not do to dwell on wishes. Contentment makes all fates delicious. So already we see that even without Mercury retrograde, this is still a Decan where we're encouraged to go on this inner journey to find those priceless pearls that are deep inside. So this is already a reflective Decan of going within to meld with that lunar shadow and to bring our liquid mind in and find those jewels in the deep blue sea, to find that contentment that makes all fates delicious. And she's guiding us to where we can seek it, which is within. So now let's take a look at the moon family. Every new moon is a part of a longer conversation that's going to extend out for over 2 years, 27 months. We call this a moon family, where the moon is returning to the same part in the chart around this 21 degrees of Cancer that it starts at. and it's in a developing relationship with the sun. So it begins with this new moon, which is the seeding point, and then it moves to a first quarter moon, which is a crisis of action, a need to take some action and pivot and make some decisions. And then it moves to the full moon, where everything's culminating and being revealed before the last quarter. It helps to know these phases, because something that you might be wanting to begin now, when you do your reflections, and maybe after Mercury retrograde finishes and you realize what's growing for you after you've looked back at these old stories. But when you come to the first quarter, you might find that difficulties show up and you might be tempted to give up. But if you know that this is activating your chart and those difficulties show up, know that that's what's supposed to happen. Don't give up. Just realize that you're meant to make decisions. You're meant to pivot slightly, maybe take a slightly different course. It's going to be different from how it started. And knowing that, you can proceed and look forward to the full moon, knowing that that's where it's going to culminate, but not necessarily harvest. Quite often the harvest comes at the last quarter, and that's where you integrate those lessons. So you're working with this much longer story, and knowing those phases helps you to know what's coming at each 9-month stage of review. And if you want to work deeper with me on these, you can join Celestia Circle and I'll help support you through the phases. You're welcome to ask questions. We have a chat and we have a live Zoom meeting every month. I'll talk you through the lunations coming up each month, but I'm happy to look at charts and to support you through where you're at in the stories that are already ongoing as well. And for now, that's still at a low monthly cost, and that will stay at a low monthly cost for people who join now. So the people who are activated will have cardinal placements between 16 to 25 degrees of Cancer, Libra, Capricorn or Aries, but also the water signs, which includes Pisces and Scorpio, and those who have the moon as their lord of the year or their solar return ascendant. If you're not sure, you can always put a message at the bottom of this post and I will help you, or you can ask an astrologer or an astro coach. I also do a moon family reading, which would go deeper into the moon family stories that you particularly want to work with or that are showing up for you right now. So how these moon families work was a framework developed by Dietrich Pessin, and you can find it in the book Lunar Shadows Through. And I find it incredibly helpful for tracking how a single seed of intention unfolds in a single story. It's worked in my chart over and over again. I'm starting to collect case studies, so if you have a story, do contact me and I will work with you to collect a case study. So for this new moon, it begins at 21 degrees of Cancer. We'll then come to the first quarter, which will be on the 13th of April 2027. And then you'll reach a pivot point, some sort of decision, some sort of challenges might show up. And that's when things will change. What you're working on or what you're growing will become more visible, just like a seed that germinates beneath the earth. And it's pushing through the earth at this point, just like a gardener would then need to space things out or maybe plant it into its own pot. It's like some action needs to be taken by you. You'll see some developments in the storyline around that time. And then the full moon on the 12th of January 2028 at 21 degrees of Cancer, that will be when there's a culmination, a full illumination on the story, if you like, in the way that full moons show things up. It's not always comfortable. It's not always easy. Sometimes that can show things that you don't always want to see. It can show up the shadow side as well. The difficulties, again, things that you might need to adjust or respond to can show up. So again, it can still mean a pivot or some action being taken. And then you move into the last quarter on the 11th of October. And that's when you need to integrate what you've learned, release the things that you're not taking forwards with you. So what have you learned from this cycle that you don't want to take forward into another Cancer 3 story in this part of your chart? So you're releasing some things and then you're integrating and saving some things. So it's like a wardrobe clear out. You know, what are you keeping? What are you giving to a charity shop? You know, what's got to go? So it's the same kind of process, the big clear out. And that creates space for new growth as well. We've got to remember one door closes, another door opens. So it's like that conscious process as well. So this will matter to you if you've got planets or angles there. You might feel a particular resonance with the themes arriving now. And I ask you just really to notice what's showing up for you, the signs, the symbols, the omens, doors opening or closing for you. So do a lot of noticing, make notes. I offer a journal every single month that will prompt you through these phases. Also gives you the dates going forward so you can return to it. So all you need to do is set a reminder in your phone or in your diary to come back to it and just notice again what's going on. Well, how is the story developing? What did you think the story was at the new moon, and how is that showing up now? So it's kind of like things are set up to just help you, but you can also do that work yourself. You can still set a reminder in your phone and just make notes. I've kind of got a master's little notebook for myself, but I also do the journaling. So for a shorter term goal, you might just want to work with the monthly moon cycles. So from this new moon to the next new moon, just month by month, or you might work with the 6 monthly cycles. So from this new moon in Cancer to the full moon in Cancer, which will be 6 months later, depending on how long your goal or what you're working towards takes. So it's just different ways of working, depending on if it's a short-term goal, something that's done quite quickly within a couple of weeks, something that's done within a couple of months, or something that's done over a much longer timeline, over a couple of years, like a bigger project or writing a book, drafting a website, or whether it's just a simple launch, something like that. So again, astrologers, astro coaches, and I can help you with all of this. So let's have a look at the chart of this moon, because it's always not just the moon in Cancer that we need to look at. It's always in conversation with the other planets in the sky. This new moon is separating from its whole sign now. The moon would have been in a square to Saturn as it was applying, but it's now separating from the square to Saturn. So it's informed by that Saturn in Aries, that other cardinal sign, the more heavier definitions of who am I, and that older wisdom of foundation structures and boundaries, the harder lessons that Saturn wants to bring in, but also with that youthful Aries energy. And also the Sun squared Saturn a week or more before the new moon. So the challenge is that the Sun, Saturn and Moon, Saturn square brought, they haven't disappeared, but the lessons are starting to take shape now. Those boundaries, responsibilities and commitments made over the time coming up to the new moon are becoming the structures that are now capable of supporting this future growth and are supporting you to do this look back that we're being asked to do. So you're not beginning from uncertainty, you're beginning from this experience that Saturn is giving, this wisdom of time. Saturn's asked you to do the hard work already, so it's giving you a definition of what comes next. And also it's important to see that the moon is moving away from its connection with Mercury retrograde, and Mercury retrograde is traveling back towards Gemini, but it won't quite reach there. Mercury is still very close to the new moon. So we've got that energy of Mercury retrograde and everything that it signifies, that slowdown on all of our tech structures. So we might find difficulties with our tech, but also listening to what it's asking of us, which is that going back over those old thoughts, those stories that Mercury in Cancer is signifying. Now, at the same time, we've got a whole sign sextile to Venus in Virgo. And this is practical and grounded support. Venus in Virgo's love language is these ordinary acts of care, like preparing food, tending the home, daily routines being refined so that they're optimum to support health, quietly serving those that we love and have around us. So simple acts of devotion and attention to detail that makes the sacred from the mundane. And it's asking us to notice those small things that we do for others and also that others are doing for us, and how those form the foundation of emotional security. Does somebody do something for you without being asked? And can we show a little bit of gratitude for that? What do you do without being asked for somebody else? There's also another sextile on the other side to Chiron in Taurus, Venus's sign. So Venus's stamp is over this. And again, this Venus in Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So we've got Mercury's signature and Venus's signature here. Chiron is the wounded healer, encouraging healing around safety, belonging, and self-worth. And just as Cancer's seeking that emotional security, Chiron is reminding us that lasting security is also growing through trusting our bodies and our values, our senses, the information that's coming to us through our senses, and those foundations that we've been quietly building. We were finding out, who are we? What happens when we speak up? Have we been told that it's not safe to speak up? Did we edit ourselves because of it? what happened when we take up space, all those explorations on the wounds that we held around it. And now we're exploring like our physical bodies and the pleasure that we can get from them through food, eating, the stories that we might hold around that through, the judgment on bodies, for example. So this is a gentle invitation. It's a sextile again, so it's an opportunity to heal those places where you felt unsafe or unworthy. Again, it's not forcing that change through, but it's offering to slowly restore trust in what's already stable for you, what's already there, what your body already knows about what safety feels like. And it's asking you to simply listen into that, look at those stories that you've told yourself and ask again, what's true? What is the evidence for it? And what's true for you? There's an antiscia here. And that means that the light is equal. So the light when Mars is in Gemini at 10 degrees is equal to the amount of daylight hours that we experience when Mercury is at 19 degrees of Cancer. So there's this hidden connection between the two, but there's also an open connection because Mercury rules Mars in Gemini. So Mars in Gemini is acting according to Mercury's wishes, and Mercury is obviously feeling a bit nostalgic and looking back. So Mars is too, but they're working towards the same goals and sometimes in a hidden or secret way, which might be in that reflective way that we're doing. Mars, again, is not taking that open action maybe. It's already in our thoughts and our curiosities, the way that we're thinking about things and going about things. But maybe it goes a little bit deeper than that with this hidden element. Maybe there's something showing up for you that takes a little bit of digging to find out. So it's an active current of learning, conversation, decision-making that's also unfolding beneath the surface of this new moon. So maybe there's actions that you can't see that are already in motion. And the Mercury retrograde, as we've discussed, already means that these family stories, the nostalgia, the memories, the old decisions that have made that are coming back, and maybe familiar ways of thinking and returning, being asked to see them in this new light from a refreshed perspective. And this quiet reflection is becoming sort of as worthwhile as leaping into action. But we're taking this pause before we do, just to collaborate all of that. And we also see that Jupiter, who spent the year in Cancer and is now newly in Leo, is making this opposition to Pluto in Aquarius, another thoughts-based sign. But here it's unearthing the deeper things that were hidden, and Jupiter's exploring it. It would be remiss of me as an astrologer to mention that everybody is talking about the Barbos basket, and there's plenty of specialist videos just on that, so I won't go deeply into that, but how the outer planets are connected. So you can see that Pluto is at 4, Neptune is at 4 of Aries, and Uranus is at 4. So as Jupiter reaches 4 degrees of Leo, that will trigger that connection, that sextile, and opposition into completion. So Jupiter is the final piece of the puzzle when it reaches 4 and completes its opposition to Pluto. So that is forming and very, very close, very, very tight as this new moon forms. So it's part of the signature of this new moon. And that is bringing this generational theme into being. And we're already seeing it in the collective. Many astrologers who know much more about mundane astrology than I do are saying that it's maybe not one single event, but collective movements as we move past the difficulties that we've seen in the collective since the 2020s, and maybe much longer than that since these planets were conjunct that they're now all spreading out from. Seeing opportunities now with these sextiles and trines to bring something better into place. So hopefully it's something more peaceful than what we've been seeing. I hope that with Jupiter opposite Pluto, Austin Coppock in his July forecast was talking about how this can be a symbol of power and corruption, that decay that you often see at the top where they can collude, like in the Epstein files and what we've seen with FIFA and Trump interfering in the World Cup, that kind of power being used and abused. So we can see that show up. But there's also, I think, with Jupiter signifying wisdom, faith and justice, I hope that with Jupiter opposite Pluto that it also brings an opportunity to balance those scales. Leo is a sign of authenticity, of deep courage, of being faithful to what's in the heart. Jupiter being the final piece of the puzzle that activates these connections into forming this configuration. I hope that Jupiter signifies some justice for the collective. And I think the more of us that share what we'd like to see from it, the more we can maybe bring that into being than sharing fears and dark shadows. And while those are possible, we can look towards the light and maybe bring that into being by speaking it into the world. So also at this time, you might want to mark this moon with a simple ritual, not forcing something new, not trying to manifest because this is a reflective time, but turning our attention to what already is for you, what's already working for you, noticing where your real abundance is all along. So you might want to sit with some reflections during this new moon window, starting with what quietly sustains you every day. Those routines that you take for granted are part of your life without being appreciated and noticed. To find your own abundance, to maybe journal on it and consider where maybe you could share without depleting yourself. So keeping your cup full, but where it's brimming, could you skim some off the top that's possible to share? Whether that sharing would actually fill you back up. Would that keep you flowing, keep you in that flow of the river? Reflect on what's been quietly growing while your attention has been elsewhere. Maybe, just that morning routine before you go out, or those friendships that sustain you. I know that I've been able to do that within the astrological community, and they sustain me. They also inspire me to keep going when I might be tempted to give up. I want to shout out to my Stereosphere Kairos colleagues and also my horary study group, those wonderful girls, and also the ladies that I met in the Magician's Table. Wonderful, wonderful women that come together in growth, in supporting each other. And I want to share my gratitude for them because they sustain me, nourish me, and inspire me. And they don't deplete me. That's the wonderful thing. That energy just grows. You can come onto a call feeling tired and like you haven't got the energy for it today, but you leave feeling energized. And that's what we're looking for. Where you find that is where that abundance is for you. So reflect on what's been growing while your attention was elsewhere. Maybe you didn't want to show up, but when you do, you feel that energy growing for you. And now bring that awareness to it and look at how you nurture others while receiving some nurturings in your daily life, and just bring that awareness and attention to it and maybe journal about it. So if you want to do a simple ritual, I suggest choosing something very ordinary, very mundane, something that you do very, very regularly, and give it your full attention, like mindful attention, where you're breathing, where you really slow it down and take your time with it. Instead of rushing through it without thinking about what you're doing, think about every single step of what you're doing. Feel about gratitude. So if you're cooking, gratitude for every single ingredient. Where did it come from? How did it reach you? What does it taste like? What does it look like? What color is it? Really feel into every single part of what you're doing. Notice every single flavor, every single smell. Connect with the house plants. Just sit and gaze at it or touch it. Notice everything about it, or a tree that's local to you. Sit beside a body of water and just notice all the reflections. Notice how it's moving. Just really connect on a deep level with it. Share food with someone you love. Listen to them deeply. Reflect back what they're telling you. Use deep listening techniques, and you might need to Google what that is, but it's when you're listening and then you're telling them what you've heard to clarify whether you've heard exactly what they said. You're not listening so you can interject with your story that matches what they're saying and that time that you did something that they did. You're listening just to hear exactly what they're saying. Maybe look through some old photographs that remind you of some memories of people that are no longer with you, and see how much you can recall about their face, every single curve or wrinkle, the colour of their eyes, how they smelt, their favourite flowers, their favourite colours. Or revisit a place you haven't been to in a while that reminds you of your roots, your connections, where you belong, where you've come from. You don't have to do all of these. They're just some suggestions, and there might be something that's better for you, but try and do one of them. A small act, but done with your full attention, even if it's just 10 minutes, but do it with your full attention in that time. And it's enough to notice a shift, even if there's noise around you or other people around you. And this overflowing cup isn't about having the most beautiful ritual that's got all the accoutrements or the tools. It's just recognizing that your cup's already full and making this simplest gesture of care so that the abundance can start to flow outwards. When you're watering a plant, you're talking to it. You're not just tending one leaf. You're nurturing the whole of this plant and where it's growing. with the same patience that the beaver uses to build the whole of its home. You're saying not only to yourself, but to the whole world and to the universe that you're willing to share it and that you're sharing that abundance. So you're just recognizing that the sacred is there in the ordinary and that the abundance is there and that the gratitude is a part of the receiving. Bringing that conscious awareness to this everyday form of abundance, you're turning that routine into this nourishing ritual that's helping you and giving back to you. The beaver doesn't build its dam in just one single dramatic gesture or action. It's building one branch, one tree, one twig at a time, and then the water rises slowly until it's reached the level, and that's how that abundance accumulates. So in closing, I just want to say that this Cancer new moon is inviting us to just pause long enough to notice those foundations that are holding us all the time. This most powerful question right now isn't what you should chase or what it gives you, but what has already found you. If you're finding that abundance hard to see, remember that this moon family unfolds over 2 years, so you have time, especially if it's activating your chart. If this resonates for you, I'd love to hear what you've noticed. And I always ask, please do remember to like, subscribe, to comment. It doesn't cost anything to be a subscriber to the channel, but it really does help as a small channel and to have people interacting. So travel well, friends, and enjoy this new moon.